Okay, so let's give it a go. What we'll be doing, I'll be going through the entire stack again. There's been, yeah, small updates. You'll be like, there's always one update or the other. Yeah, so when you are trying to build something that won't be changing or that other people are going to work on, it's good that there is a standard, right, up from the ground. Like, so those standards are what people will eventually sit on and then work at. While okay, I've already messed up with my code, so it would have spoiled so many things. It won't run. So let's go ahead and start reviewing what are the standards, what are the things that I'm talking about. Okay, so I don't even know where we start from. Let me start from the file I created, and it's supposed to be a guide. I've just started doing the change, right? I've not completed the change itself. So it's a guide I create that will help us to manage our expectation or what we are building entirely. So this is, like I mentioned, supposed to help us to reach our ultimate goal. So this is supposed to be like the guide, backend guide for the architecture. And I have like, you know what a router is, right? Controller, arguably, that's also, you know what that means. So let me just start with the definition. The router is more of like defined endpoints to say this file, I'm keeping it to create list of endpoints. So if I'm looking for an endpoint, I just go to this file, I see the endpoint, or still known as routers. They don't really do anything. I'm just mapping an endpoint to a particular function. So that function is called controller. So our controller is supposed to be a way for me to get an handshake between the public, yep, that is demanding for that endpoint. So it's the first point of function that they get in touch with. Services is supposed to be, and that's the point of all these things. We need to define all these layers. So I call them layers. So these layers of architecture. So services is supposed to be the person that is supposed to say, you go and do this, you go and do this, you go and do this. There's a new thing now, which is, it's not new, these two guys. So these two guys they've been the bone of contention for some while now, in the sense that, are we doing repository or are we doing DOA? So I dug further, and then I saw the need to provide these two guys again, like as part of the layers. So we have the repository and we have the DAO. Now this part, there's no confusion about what DAO is. There's no confusion in the sense that this guy is the one in charge of directing, connecting to the database. This guy connects to the database and is supposed to do that, right? As in, like, that's his primary function, connect to the database. All these other guys should not. Then you will now ask me, what is the repository all about? This guy is supposed to be the one to validate if I can actually connect to the database. So an example is that if maybe a status, it's more of like checking if the action can actually occur. We'll go down the line and give more example. Okay, this one's our story, why this architecture exists. So it's gonna be, obviously, it's multi-tenant application, which means there are it's a SaaS-based application. So the tenants are sitting in the same database with every other person. Domain-driven logic, growing, and that's the idea. We want to grow with more people, so there need to be, this kind of documentation, and this will also help. Even if I'm getting confused, I can go and look at this documentation and say, oh, okay, so this was supposed to guide us. So the architecture ensures safety, no data leak is left behind, maintainability, clear ownership of responsibility, easy onboarding of new developers, and so on and so on. Now, layers of responsibility. This is what I try to summarize individually here, but I have a session that kind of talk about it in details in the layer of responsibility. Normally, ideally, I'm not supposed to even talk about this router, but I just put it there, and you must have seen it a couple of times. So there's a folder called router. Where is the guy? Inside internal, and doesn't do much work. It's just to say, oh, this is a bunch of endpoints that points to this part. So mostly it's on the main, but of course I like to organize my stuff this way. So maps URL to controller, applies middleware, right? Yeah, if it needs to apply, create rate limiting if it needs to apply. Before even trying to enter controller, you can start, knocking some things off and make the controller life much more easier. At this stage, you can't even do coding. Like, when I mean you can't do coding, you can't connect to access, you can't do all these things. So the major thing that it does is that it applies middleware and then it calls controller. Simple. Everybody understand this part. But the deeper it goes, the more detail we need to get. Then controller HTTP layer. So request passing and validation is what you do here. Request passing and validation, and you must have seen that in the controller. So if you open one controller, for example, so what you do here in the controller is we do validation. Very important, because before we start sending the data, and the validation that happens are the basic validation of the data that is coming in, right? So once you do that, I just picked any controller, by the way, and if you see all the controllers, they maintain that shape. They receive the data, validate the data, and pass it on to who? To the service. There's some time maybe data doesn't need to, maybe if it's not passing data, guess what? You just send it off to service to go and do the needful. So, and then they return status code, like they return error and what have you. That's one of the major things, because that's the exit part of the system. There's no map here, but if you look at the map, it goes like this: router, controller, service, repository, DOA, and then it works its way back: DOA, repository, services, controller, and like that. So it works its way back to terminate the request. Okay, so at this point, what are the things that you don't do? You don't do business logic, you don't access database. Although I will give a what's the word now? There will be a caveat in this point. There will be some times where we don't need to create service and repository and DOA. There will be some times where this guy will just access database. Sometimes, like one in a, you see those caveats, right? But those things are not supposed to be done always. It's just once in a while, and that's maybe when you are doing a lookup, So no database access, no email or notification functionalities. Are you surprised? What's email doing here? As part of the system, you know that the system will be sending mail, the system will be doing file storage. There are other things that the system will be doing, and we call those things side effects. That's going to be happening on the second part of the system. So no catching is done here. The guy is just sending. These are the major things that the guy is doing. Okay, controller must remain thing. So here, this controller part, this terminology here, remain thing. If you notice, these are the things I've been trying to advertise, or I've been trying to mention some years back, talking about how controller should not be fat. Most times when we do MVP, we tend to make our controller fat, which is not the case. Controller is supposed to be one of the leanest, in all the layers that we have. Okay, so let's move on to the next thing that we have, and the next thing is service. This part is interesting because this one is more of like the one that orchestrates everything, like an orchestra. Orchestra gives signal to people to do stuff. That's where the main action is happening, even though they are not the one that eventually perform all the actions, right? They are the one that kind of push what needs to be done. Just like the name implies, services, they call so many people to aggregate audio details and move back to controller the caller, and then from there everything gets executed. So what's the responsibility of your service? So it's more of like I mentioned, orchestra, the use case, coordinate responsibility or coordinate the repositories, and then they own the side effects. But what does side effect means? Side effects are things that occur as a result of that function, like sending email, doing cache, doing logs. Even though I would like to push the log to the log cannot come to the router, right? I would have loved to push the log to the router because it's possible that the event happened or did not happen, right? So that's, by the way, still look at this log thing. Event and webhook happens here. File storage, cache, read or write, right? So the cache here, before it start hitting the repo, it can stop here at the service. So let's say, for example, you need to get users and the users has gone through service. Instead of it going to repo and DOA, from service, you can check the cache and say, hey, do I have this information in the cache? If I do, I don't need to go down the line, start calling the DAO and things like that. I could just return what I have right there. That's one of the purpose of the service there. So another part that the service does is that it passes the write data, right? It passes the DTO to the repo, right? We'll come and talk about, because the DTO here is important. This is where conversions are being happening, right? It converts whatever it received from the repo or DOA to DTO. So let me go back to this diagram here. I will reference this as diagram. So we can either connect service directly to DAO or to repository, because it's possible that what you are trying to do might not hit the database. It might just be a check on something. It doesn't need to get to database, so you stop at repository. If it needs to get database, it gets to this point. Or sometimes you might not need the repository involved, you will get to database. So it's not all requests that will have all these 4 layers. Okay, now this is 5 layers now. 5 layers. And the reason why it's this detail is so that we'll have something to work with. We don't need to guess. So this document is a kind of a guide that we put us in line. So now, what are the rules? Number 1, no SQL is written here, nothing like Golang. No HTTP concern. We call repository. We talk to cache. We talk to mail. We talk to storage. This is where you do your storing, database storage, and everything you want to do. Then controls transaction if needed. So this part is also key. This part is key. Let me explain what this part is. Now, if you are creating a tenant, as you will know, when you are creating a tenant, you have several things you have to put in consideration. Like you have to create the company, you have to create the users, you have to create the role and licenses, so many things you have to create. And you have to put those things in transaction so that if one fails, you can roll back. Guess what? Service is the one that controls all that. And then you call each of the data you need to call to do each of those actions. So if you need to create tenant first, service will call the function to create that tenant. If you need to now create company after tenant, service will also call that. So you are doing it one by one, but sending transactional information down line to it. Let me see if that's what I did. So I can't remember if that's what I did, but let's check the code and see what we have. So I go down to tenant is under business HTTP. And if you go here and see this to check email, now this is to create account. Yep. This one is to create account. Let's see what we did here. From the creation of accounts, this is the HTTP, which is the controller. Then notice that it's not doing much here. It's doing validation, and this is also well in its right to do. You are checking the file to see if it contains something. Is the validation, you don't need to do anything. Just you're validating. You're not doing any business processes. Now, after those things are done, you send it off to who? To the service that is going to do the setup of the tenant. Now, when you go in here, now this is exactly what I was talking about. I think, did I do the needful? I did it partially, right? I did it partially. So this is checking if tenants already exist, which is here. Find by tenant. So this is the service, guys, calling the DAO or the repo. I'm checking. So if it does not exist, or if it already exists, it will return an error, send it back to who? To the controller. And by the way, we need to start checking for existence of tenant by the domain name. I think that thing came to me when I was doing something yesterday. So check by domain name. That will not lie, because I can change my company name, not because I want to. I can just add comma to it or put full stop, and then that will fool the system. So we'll use domain name to actually check if it, if that exists, because I think domain name is one of the requirements. If you don't have a domain name, I don't see what kind of business you are doing. Okay, so let's move on. Now this is service, like I said. So service, it has called an endpoint, or rather it has hit the data, it came back. And look at the transaction connection. Okay, I didn't hold the transaction connection. This is wrong. I'm not supposed to create transaction like this, but that will happen in the correction I'm about to make. And then the next thing is I check if the admin, is available. If not, if it's available already, again, say that the admin is already existing. Maybe an admin, is trying to create an account for another company, but it's using the same email. You shouldn't allow that. Now, if it's, can go create tenants. So you can see the way the service is working. Another thing that the service does is that it does the upload of the file. These are the side effects about the services. So it connects to S3, do all it needs to do. Guess what again it does? It also sends an email, completes the whole thing. So it's a transactional kind of a thing. There's a lot of transaction going on here. So the repo, as the case may be in this sense, is just doing connection to data. So you can say that this guy does not have access to Gin or Gorom. There's no Gorom stuff here. Everything you're seeing here is all service level, like orchestrating the whole thing. Oh, you go and do this, you go and do that. But it's not, you will not see any SQL query here. SQL query is written inside the repo. Now, remember, we're trying to expand the repo into 2 parts. So the repo is about to get into 2 parts. And by the way, I will not enable repo for everything. So I'm converting this repo back to DAO. Yeah, I'm changing back the repo back to DOA. I will explain what the repo does later. So let's continue in the explanation. Yep, I think that's service. Service is good to go. So I needed to explain this transactional thing that the service does. And another purpose for doing this, apart from the guideline, I didn't add it to the comments. I didn't add it to this part as what we're doing. The purpose of separating all these is for easy testability and maintainability. Yeah, even though it stated it here, it's also for testing. Now imagine everything doing what they are supposed to do, like everything, services doing its own thing, DAO doing its own thing. I could easily test the DAO to see if it's actually performing what it's supposed to perform. If I lump everything together, testing will be difficult. Trust me, testing will be difficult. So let's go to this code now. You could easily test a particular piece of function to see if it's working, apart from testing the whole thing. Now there's like this one, for example. Now, where is the code? I can easily test this one, set up new tenants, without worrying about all these other things. Or rather, maybe not, this is not the example I want to use. If I want to test this controller, it's easy to test. I know that I have to make sure that every other function will abide by whatever I've done. If I go to setup like so, I could easily test find by name. Now this is DAO testing, so that's testing will be much more easier. Okay, moving on to the next thing is the reciprocity, which is they call it domain boundary. Yes, so where does this one comes in? You can see it has a lot of no that should happen here. It's domain specific data access, right? It enforces domain rules across multiple DAOs. So it enforces multiple rules across DAOs, like in terms of what should be done and what should not be done. Like the example I gave, before you can access a particular piece of information in the DAO, you can check if that particular user have access, right? Or to see if the logic applies. So let me give you an example. Imagine you want to apply for a leave, and you get to the point whereby you click apply, even because you don't trust what is coming from the user. That's another thing. You don't trust what is coming from a user. Imagine if the leave has already been applied and then they click apply again. The repository has the ability, or that's where the function is saddled under, to make sure that they don't pass that part. It's more like a security to protecting your business logic. So enforce rules across multiple DAOs, aggregate data for multiple DAOs if requires, shield services from persistent data, from persistent details. So like I said, this DAO part, or rather the repo part, will be only specific to some certain operations. It's not all operations that will have this repo, right? It's not all processes that will have the repo. Imagine you mix these conditional checks in between your DAOs. Then your DAO will not be doing that particular access. It will not be carrying your logic. DAOs are supposed to be abstraction to get to your data. That level. Do this. Why this guy is supposed to add the logic to it. So if I break it down, services is the one scattering operation. You go and do this. Repository, carry your logic. Your data, do your thing. So let's see what this guy shouldn't do. It's not a cache level. This is not where you do cache or cache. This is not a CRUD wrapper. Your CRUD is supposed to happen in the DAO, and that's why I'm renaming it back to DAO. And then when I need to do repo, I would then bring it in. So repo will not come immediately, right? So as I'm building this, I'm going to adjust the ones that I need to have repo, and then we'll build it in and we'll do what we need to do. So it's not a place for side effects. It's not a place where you send mail. Yeah, the place for sending mail is in services. Now the reason why I'm putting this not is because there's a blur line between, oh, can I do this here? Can I do this here? Right. So if you see what you can't do, it also help. So no file storage happens here. File storage is in services. No HTTP logic. Right. Another thing again that I did not put here is context. Yeah, I didn't put that here. I think I'll find a way to also put that here. So in so many places, we try to get the context. So this is context here. So context is, we've talked heavily about context, is what's coming from the user. It holds quite a lot of things, right? At what point do you stop accessing the context? That's another thing. So at the point of services, you need to stop accessing the context. So you should have gathered all the information you need to gather, so that the other part layer will just be receiving it as a parameter. That way it's easy to test, because how many level down do you want to push the context? It becomes in a way that it won't be testable again. Imagine your DAO having access to the context. That's crazy. And again, it's what we need to correct, right? So your DAO this guy does not need access to your context. Whatever thing you wanted to do that the context needed in a function needs to be passed down as early as possible, especially from your services. Okay, enforce domain invariance, and now we have the infamous DAO, data access object, and responsibility is very straightforward. It's as easy as the HTTP request or controller. So what happens here is you connect to the database purely, and I think I've maintained that at so many. You can see I've started renaming my thing back. So I think I've maintained it as much as possible. Just query the guy. If you're writing anything, is to get the data. That's your stuff here. Anything you are doing here, you are querying the data directly. You are querying data, or you are creating, you are updating, you are deleting. That is what your business with DAO is all about. Don't get it mixed up with doing logic stuff. Just, you have the data ready, just go and populate it. Boom, you are good to go. Another thing again we will be enforcing tenant ID mandatory in this part DOA. Yeah, so anything you are doing, that needs to be enforced. We need to create a kind of a logic that is easy enough for people to follow, and it will be part of the system. Yeah. So no business logic, no side effect, no caching, no DTO conversion. Very important. So it makes life easy. Imagine you are at this level. Where is it again? After you must have done what you need to do, you've brought in the what's it called? Yeah, you've brought in whatever you need to do. You then need to worry about the export. So your data that you always return is what? Is always a model. That's the thing. It's always supposed to be a model. That's the data you're supposed to always return back, a model. Okay, that's if you need to return anything. Now this is also data conversion rules and how it happens across board. From your HTTP, you come in with a JSON, and sometimes it might not be a JSON, it might just be a path. It comes in as a JSON, and going away with what? Going away with a DTO. So who converts what to what? Your JSON to DTO happens in the controller level. So your DTO to domain happens in services. So what does domain means? So domain is not really sitting as a model. So let me explain the domain thing. The domain can just be a group of variables that you need, to split down in the repository. Now from your domain level, it goes to your model, right? And then vice versa. Domain responds to DTO and services. Okay, so DTO never cross into DAO. So those are supposed to be the guideline we are supposed to use. So let me explain what that means. I think most times our DTO crosses over to the DAO. I think most time, not like is by default. So it's supposed to be like when you are trying to create an employee, guess what you're supposed to have here? You're supposed to have a model, like sitting pretty, waiting for you. Everything is supposed to have been orchestrated, waiting for you, and then you just populate what you need to populate. So there's not supposed to be any hanky-panky going on, checking whatever. You're supposed to have played with your DTO and convert it to your model and send it off to your DAO to operate on. That's the idea. So ID enforcement, so is a critical role. Tenant isolate is non-negotiable, because if you don't have this enforced rules, things are gonna break. So tenant is never optional. Must extract from request context. Yeah, so this is from the beginning. Must be enforced by every DOA. Service and repo must never bypass DOA. So like you can't get data without the DOA. So that's the idea. Okay, so this is also a way to make sure that you enforce the. So this, I'm going to review this and see if we can have a more better stuff. But let me try and explain what this does. So what this does is that you are creating a DOA that you want to be using for employee. So by default, you are created this function so that you can be able to, so it's like calling itself, and you are saying model of this. This like, what's the word now? This like a generics. So what you are doing is that you're automatically setting the tenant ID from the context. That's what you are doing. That's a long story. So we need to review this pattern. So like I mentioned, we are doing a lot of adjustments. So I'm just making sure that you are carried along to see how we can better provide synergy across this one. So the concern, catching rules, we're not doing catch anytime soon. So, but it's just there. We're not doing this anytime soon. So all catch is supposed to be on the service layer, right? But nothing is happening on that level. Side effects, there's going to be a lot of side effects. We're going to be doing sending mail, push notification, maybe not now. File upload, of course we're going to be doing a lot of file upload. Login, yeah, I did mention that login is supposed to be handled by a middleware kind of a thing. So it's supposed to happen that way. It makes it very easy. You don't need to worry about it. So login is supposed to capture the details of what's going on. So that will be handled by middleware, not necessarily inside service. Because if you put it inside service, it's going to be a lot of stress to manage. It's supposed to actually be in the middleware. So this is the folder structure that we'll be having. There's going to be some updates in the folder structure. So we already know what these structures are. Yep, this one. So the ones I'm gonna that I'm splitting now is these two, and their details are there. Yeah, so I think we should be seeing, we might not see code inside the repository anytime soon, but I need to mention it, and then we need to create this guideline so that once those codes start sitting in there, it will make sense. So, but for now, service will hit directly to DAO. So once we make provision, once the code keep coming up, this guy will get populated. So it's good to understand the details and everything. So this one is also very important, and this is how we've been assessing the data from the front end, from DTO and what have you. And there's also constant. This one has also be a huge help, right? We didn't mention it part of the system. So if I wanted something to be consistent across board, I just chuck it inside constant, and I'm sure it has been of serious help lately. So the enum thing has been great. Yeah, so yeah, not that I'm changing my mind about male or female or anything. It just makes sense to tie it so that somebody will not go and be playing funny at some point. So you can just put this, and then the marital status we have, you can add more, by the way, and then it automatically applies to front end and back end. And this one also, these are things that can be dynamic, right? So things that and the good thing about it is that we have one source of truth. One source of truth, and this is the backend. So that happens as a source of truth. Because we've tied it to something, it's now populated from the front end as well. So these are the currencies, even though some of these things are in the table. Yeah, like for example, currency has its own table, but I don't want to look up the table to know the currency that I have. So I'm back manually mapping it. So we have another section called active licenses. Now active licenses are the one that we want to kickstart with this project. So I blur the rest so that once I'm doing like a tenant thing, or I'm doing like a onboarding thing, they can pick from the active one. And also have active role, by the way. There are some role I'm trying to fade off or maybe mute, but because the system will be compatible with the other system, so I need to bring all of them back up again. Yep. So apart from that, I also have onboarding roles. If you notice, there are some roles that are in the onboarding, but we don't capture audio roles in the onboarding section. So I have to create another section again for onboarding role. So the good thing about these things is that I can tie these to a particular field, and that field knows that I can't have anything outside of these things. You'll be wondering why did I have underscore here. So if I don't have underscore here, it will mess up with the already defined one. So, but the good thing is that the front end does not, fight me against this underscore. And another good thing about it is that it uses this guy as a part of the naming convention. So it's never a conflict. So the MD here does not conflict with the MD here because it uses this as a namespace. So that has helped in that part. Now look at where this guy shine now. Now because I've turned this to a data type, if I come to where it's being used here and I say the roles that can be accessible for onboarding employee serving as an input, so this is like how to input and onboarding stuff, and I come here and I say, hey, I need this role ID to just be constant onboarding role. So roles that will be available for me to select will be that roles. This is trickled down even to the front end. So that's how interesting it is. So if we go to look at it from the front end part, so this is me utilizing it. So the front end also have it like this. So you notice that it came in this way, but am I the one that did this? Okay, the system did it itself. Yeah. So it didn't see underscore as a stuff. It just do it that way. So what I need to do, I need to find a way to enforce capital letter here. This one, I need to find a way to enforce that this guy is this way. By the way, there's a script I told it to follow so that it can do this naming convention. Yeah, there's a script I told it to follow to do this one. But I will try, maybe if I do something like this, if let me even do it now. It won't go, but let me set it up for later since I remember now. So this IT, I want to do, this is not available as a variable name. You can't use something like this, so you have to do something like this, because if you put a space, it's not denoted as enum. So I think no, it won't work, because it will see this I. So this is supposed what I want to do. So I want it to see this I and T. It will put space. No, it won't put space. So let me see what it will do to this one. I want this I and T to be like so. So HR, yeah, because the way it's rendered at the end is that it's saying I and small letter T, admin. So this way it's been rendered. It's seeing that the first letter is supposed to be capitalized, which the code I told it, and the one I capitalized is leaving it, but the second one is making it reduce. I can't remember the name of the case again that they call that one ahead. So if it sees it like this, I think it will do the needful. So let's check. I can't check now, so we'll check later. But the painful part is that using it this way, I don't need to put underscore here again, because it's unique enough. But by the time I start changing for the other ones, I would then need to put the underscore. So let me just put it now. But the thing now is that it will just make it look awkward to use within my own system. It will just make it awkward. But as long as it's a constant, there's nothing to worry about. Okay, now let's continue and then finish the review. The middleware is there. Yeah, it does a lot of things. The mail is our email provider, which is not as a folder, it's in form of a plugin or form of utility tool. But we need to create something around that. We have the storage. We don't have that folder. It's supposed to be S3 utility and the configuration, and we are done with the whole thing. So this is standard flow of everything, the way it's supposed to go to. Like I said, this repository will be silent for now, but it's coming up very soon. So I'm going to rename all this repo to DAO back. Yeah, because the main repository is going to come and handle this thing. So I've started that renaming. As you can see, I've started. We'll complete it very soon. Okay, so what we expect to avoid, because this whole thing can be like overwhelming. Like, what are we trying to achieve with this? Number one, this one has been resolved like since day one. So we're also trying to avoid business logic in DAO, separation of stuff. We're also trying to not put side effects in repo. Side effects goes into services. Catching and logging in services. Skipping tenant enforcement. We want to avoid people skipping this one. The circular dependency is also a thing. Circular dependency is that when I think I mentioned it, when you are calling yourself I think I mentioned in one of the videos. So mental model to that can help you memorize where things go into. Consider this is a lot of work, but the idea of this point is so that things is better architectured. So it's not just about one person doing the whole thing, it's about architecture of the entire system. Router is where the requests go, right? Controller is the request valid. Service, what needs to happen. Repository, what domain data is needed. How to query it safely. So those are the things that like our keyword and everything. So final rule, if you're unsure where code belong, ask, does this change business behavior or performance? Yes, that's service. No, lower level. You take it lower level. Okay, so that's everything on this part, and that will lead me back to my continuation of what I was trying to do, and that is fixing back the conversion I did. So if you don't have any question, what I want to do now is try and return all the repo back to DAO, which is gonna be like painstaking to do, but it's not supposed to take that much time. It's just renaming. Yeah, I think I've done this. I've done this one as well. So this base, I'm gonna sit on this base very well. I need to re-architecture it. So the base is supposed to enforce a kind of a tenant thing, so that it will make sure that the tenant is always provided. Yeah, that's the purpose of the base. So I'm still looking for, because this guy is very free. Golang, you have, well, not just Golang. When you are working at the code, there's limits to the enforcements that you can make, because you are the developer. You can decide to follow some rules or not to follow some rules. So it's all on you. So we have to do a lot of renaming now. A lot of renaming. So that one is done. So what are you currently working on? Because we need to start. I need to start assign. And again, one of the things is that you will discover that no task has been assigned, and it's actually intentional, because as you can tell, there's a lot of structure being done. So while things are still moving around, it's gonna be difficult for tasks to be assigned. But we're getting towards standardizing a lot of things. So this same thing that I've done on the back end, I need to repeat same on the front end. Yeah. So a lot of things has also been done on the front end, but it needs documentation. I'm going to document that, and we'll go through it as well, but not now. I wish I can do that now. We're going to go through it so that you can also see the requirements and what needs to be done on that part. So anything called repo DAO now is supposed to be called DAO. But I will try and explain some things right now in the front end, so to get you prepared. Okay. Okay. In the main, hey. No, that one has been done since now. I've already done that one since. That's like day one. That's like a day one thing now. We moved them long ago. Yeah, we moved them long ago, because they were kind of making the whole page long. Because the main itself was kind of distracting, because you're just supposed to jump into the main and get out of it. The main is not supposed to contain so much distraction like that, right? So like, because imagine everything was here. So I mentioned that like very early in time, and then I create all this, and more is still coming. So it's just like I'm saying now, I'm still focused on structuring the whole thing. And the more code I write, the more I see the structure more. The more the structure open up to me. Yeah. So that's why it looks as if that's happening. Because sometimes if you do not test it, you will not see if it will work, or if it's the way to go. Yeah. Sometimes you will not know until you actually test it out and see, okay, is this pattern okay? That's another thing. Pattern. Is this pattern what I want to enforce across board? No, it's in plenty. So where am I now? It's almost done. One of the good thing is that this doesn't affect the front end. So once you've make another decision now on naming, it also has an impact, especially the DTO. So if you decide that this is what you want to call something, that has an impact. Okay, so look at this one now. I want to call banks, right? So I want to also call PFAs. So instead of me creating a specific this is a very good example, very good example. So this is bank, right? And PFA, that's pension fund administrators. Now there are different domains, very important. Different domain is that they do different things. They don't share the same database now, obviously. This is supposed to be in a repo. So the repo is supposed to now call individual thing. Oh, get the bank, get the... So the repo can contain many DAOs, but the DAO is supposed to be one-to-one thing. That's why I said that repository and DAO is like a thin line, but DAO itself has no problem. It's directly accessing a database. So like I said, eventually we'll get to that point. So this one is reaction DAO. This one is for the likes. So this is new. This is how likes are being, done on the system. So we have comments. So this states. So let me just do file rename quickly. So tenant repo. That's enforcement of tenant, because the way I did it on CodeFusion, it was easier, but this one is difficult. That tenant cannot even be enforced across Gene. So Gene doesn't have that flexibility, or I say Gene, Gorom rather. Gorom, that thing, I spent a lot of time on it, trying to use the framework to achieve that particular purpose. In fact, I also use Postgres to enforce the tenant thing, but it was working at some point, but it was failing. It's those kind of thing that it will work and then it will fail. You don't want to do something like that, or like it will do as if it's working and then it will fail. I say no, I can't have something like that. Okay, so why is this guy not coming up? This guy is not coming up. Okay. What's happening? I don't spoil the thing now. Okay, let me go and check the package. DAO, all of them are named DAO now, so why is it not happening? Let me try and use Gene. I noticed something about, I said Gene, let me try and use okay, I will check it now. I will check it. It doesn't matter as long as the package name is correct. Do you understand? So it's the package name that is actually important. So let me use Z and check something. I was using Z some couple of days ago. It was not bad because I'm trying to actually, but one of the things that I've not been able to set up with Z is the AI part. That AI part is very important too, because now the thing is part of my work process now, that it needs to actually work very well. So I'm trying to see what's going on here. We are actually at services. It's still complaining. DAO. Okay, the folder spelling is actually important, so I have to do that here. It will pick it now. DAO. But it was supposed to. So it has picked it now. But important and not used. What do you mean? Is it not used here? Let me check. Wahala. So let me go back to Gene. I say Gene Edge. Let me go back to Edge and let's quickly complete this. So there is an update. I think it has updated the system, because this one still have, I can still easily resolve it here than what's going on now? Need this resolved though. What have I done? It's just normal renaming now. Oh no. DAO. So you said I imported it and I didn't use it. But if truly it's supposed to disappear automatically, but for it to stay, it's in conflict with itself. Okay. Oh, okay. DAO. Let me check the folder name. DAO. Is it DO? Oh god. What's even the name? I'm confused now. DAO. Are we okay? Okay, it's DAO. DAO. Okay. So it needs to I will restart the yeah, I will off it and on it again. So let me check if the head will now be correct. Let's check. The head is not correct though. Okay. DAO. Okay, let's check the package name. So this is the package conflict. This is it here. This is the issue. This is the issue. So okay, so let's continue. So it's pointing to what did I call? I must have missed. Okay. This nomenclature, it's tongue twisting. Okay, so let's go back. I got this guy cleared. I got this guy. So I need to check all instances of all the reference and point them to DAO. I hope that's the right thing. Okay, yeah. So all this one, I need to change it from repo to DAO. Then anytime I do something like this, I need to change it to there's a lot of changes, so DAO as well. Then who is calling? So I think I must have messed up the name here too in the DAO setup here. So in fact, what I can do is I can check all instances that have created the wrong naming, but I'll make sure that the case is sensitive. to the AO here. So that will fix all the messes that must have been done. So if I come to this one, so I think I have one error at the bottom, which is here. So what's the, so normally when you are using variable like this, they are supposed to be lowercase, not the way it's assessing it like this. Okay, that one is saved. So the next one is comments. So I'm not doing case sensitive. Okay, all good. Comment is all good. Services. So which other person? Services is good. This part, departments. So I'm gonna rename all instances of how do I do this? Let me just focus on this page then and call this one. So this is DDAO, and update that to be this. Okay, I think this one is cool. Jump into job title, and I can do JDAO. They have to be the same case. That's also cool. Location, that's LDAO. That's also cool. So you can see the way service is calling everything. So this pattern is not bad, right? This pattern is not bad. So pay attention, very well placed, because this parts are key. You start handling these things very soon. Okay, so this one is supposed to be, yeah, this one is correct, but it's not having the same counterpart as this. I think that's the only change required here. This is supposed to be BDAO, so that it becomes what this one so becomes. Good. Reaction, services, and everything. Okay, good. We are almost done. Oh, we have tenant guy. Nah, we can't do the same thing here. It's supposed to be small letter. This is supposed to be EDAO. Who needs it? This guy needs it. So this for tenant. This guy calls it. And so company is supposed to be DAO. Okay, what else? Okay, I think we are done. Oh. Yeah, the back guy has been sanitized. So the next thing I want to do is to before we go to the front end quickly, let me while we are planning to go to the front end, let me run the git whatever. I mean, what is the guy? The Docker guy. Let me run the Docker guy so that its thing can be going. But before I run Docker, remember what I mentioned, you have to delete this guy, this node module, else it will not work. So once Docker is up and safe, you can then continue, you can then reinstall on your system. I try to look for solution. In fact, there's no solution to that. That's actually part of the thing that you have to sacrifice to be able to implement what it is you're implementing right now. So those are the part of the sacrifice. So cd volume. Okay, where is that shortcut key? So I actually want to build from ground up again. So I wanted to go, what do I really need to make it all the way from ground up? But let that be going on. Let's continue what we are doing. So I said I wanted to take you through the changes that has happened. Not necessarily changes, there's been some updates. Yeah, there's been an update, very much well update. Yes. So there's gonna be so many consistency or some patterns, just like as I've mentioned in before, that there's gonna be a file guide I'm gonna create that will help us also know what's happening. You know, majorly you'll be doing CRUD, like create, update, delete, and insert, and you will need a way to hold data. So we're heavily going to be relying on store. This is the store guy. We're going to be heavily relying on the store, and the store depends on the data you are trying to import. So generally, let's say for example, you are trying to create the last one I created is departments. Yes, good. You're trying to create a department, right? And then this is to create that department. This is it here, new department. So you need a form of data interface or input that people are going to say, oh, this is the way the database looks like. In TypeScript, they call it shape. This is the shape of the object. So this is not a good example, but we can use this DTO, whatever. Sometimes I might need to create another DTO to match the input I want to collect, because sometimes it's not one-to-one relationship between the data and the model. Yep. So an example of that is the onboarding procedure. So the onboarding here, okay, okay, this is to get. Yep, this is the new, okay, this new onboarding. No, this is still to get. Where's the guy for new onboarding? It should actually be here. This still get, this still get. Yes, this is where I'm going to. Now, notice this one has onboarding employee inputs. So this nomenclature are going to be something we'll work on, streamline. If it's going to be the same inputs for both creating an update, you just, instead of having two DTO that says onboarding employee update or onboarding employee create, you can just leave it as one. If they are identical, the same, if they're identical, so you can just make it one like this. But if it's different and it also has its own shape, you can create its own DTO. Of course, the DTO has to be available, so it's not that you're just typing anything here. So whatever DTO you call it has to be something you eventually created here. So I have the onboarding DTOs here. So I call it employee-_o_DTO. So that gives you that idea. So this one means onboarding employee input. These are the fields that needs to be captured when I'm creating new onboarding, or yes, when I'm creating and updating, I need all these fields at the same time. That's what it's saying. There are some times whereby when you are creating, you need fewer fields. When you are updating, you need more, whatever it is. So you can create different shapes or different inputs as you want. So for this scenario, it's just one. Like the case of the one I was looking at now, which is department, new departments. I didn't need to create a separate input for departments. This was okay for me, right? Even though I will not be using this. That's another thing again. I don't need this guy, employees, because this is literally good for displaying. In fact, I could literally create a new DTO for data input. This makes sense to create a new input. Okay, I think I did, but I didn't use it. Very funny. Or I didn't enforce it. That's the right word. I didn't enforce it. I actually created it. So there's supposed to be name, the parent, which is supposed for me to know the parent of the department, the company, and then if it's active or not. So, but I just discovered that I didn't enforce it. I went to use this guy. So how do I make sure that this guy is being used is by specifying it as a form of my body in my controller, which is here. So the department guy, so you can see that this is to get departments. In fact, at some point we need to just do this. Wait, aha, so this to create. So notice, yeah, this is done correctly. Okay, I did it. So what was I looking at before? I think I was looking at something else. So it's actually done correctly. Yep, this was, maybe I was looking at this because it was bold. Now this, I don't know if I mentioned this before. I think I've mentioned this before. We've done this. We have now standardized the data exports. I think I mentioned it, but let me just repeat it again. The data export is now on this guy, API response. So the data that must go must be inside here. What I mean, the data that must go, the data you're trying to return, whenever you return it at the end, right, it must match what you put inside here. So you'll see that across board. Okay, that's by the way. Now let's see if our guy is live. Okay, we're live. All of them are live. They're happy. Is my database on? Okay, my database is on. Let me now install my pnpm install, so it won't shout too much for us. While it's trying to do that, I think I still have that constant thing in my head. That one we try to do the underscore stuff and to see if it will go. I think we have to jump back to here. There was something I was actually making reference to. Yes, I was talking about the store. And then over time, I think to make things more saner, we can do something like department. Even though that this is like this too much for me. So let me just say, let me just separate it. Even though normally it's supposed to sit under organization. So what is department? It's like you're trying to create things that has to do with departments. I just put all department stuff in that place. So this part will be explained in the stuff, the documentation we're trying to create, right? We'll explain all what is going on here. But I think I've done that explanation some time back. Yep, I think I've done the explanation. But the idea is that you want to do a store to hold when you're creating stuff and to hold when you're updating stuff. That's majorly what is happening here. Yeah, it's a crucial part of the system that without it, you can't move forward. Not like you can't move forward, but it's integrated in part of every part of the system. So you can't use one part and leave one part. So this is like the initial stage to go. So the part that's important is this center piece here, DTO department input, which is like the input that you need to take when you are creating a department. And we have two forms of creations, or one form of creation, one form for update. So this is for create and this is for update. And I did a very simple stuff. It's because these ones are the same. These guys are the same. The data is the same, like the shape is the same. I just do something like this. I can actually extend. I don't know why I didn't do that. I can actually extend. I can extend this one. This is OOP now. So I can say, hey, the same thing that is happening here, I want it to happen in this one. So I'm extending this guy. Let me see if that's the right way. Let me go and do yeah, it's extend. Yeah, that's it. So instead of me repeating myself, if you have different shape or data for create and update, you have to write its own explicitly. You have to write its own explicitly. But since they have the same shape, the same data, this looks good like so. So we can have this way. I can then import departments. How did I spell it? D-E-P-T. So let me rename that one. Okay, now let's make our guy. Let's generate some codes. I want to see that enum. I'm really very interested in seeing that enum stuff. Now, where is our code generator? I can't find it. Let me just look for it. Constant what's again? Active. Okay, so let's look for role HR. Okay, role. Yeah. I'm focused about IT administrator, but is it active? I think it's onboarding. Yeah, onboarding role. So let me see what it called it. If it did what we expected to do. Perfect. It worked. So it did exactly what I wanted to do. Now you'll be wondering, why do I want it to do this? The reason I want it to do this is in the interface, because I didn't manually type this in the interface to load this IT admin, HR admin. No, I also automate it in the sense that go and look all the enums and literally look at it and give me something that makes sense. Yeah, that's what I also wrote the code to do that. That way it makes my work much more easier. So let's go and look at the interface and see what we'll have. Where's the app again? Ah, the guy is tired of refreshing, because the code has been refreshing like every now and then. So I've been able to log on with several accounts to do some testing and what have you. So I can't remember this guy's password, so I have to. There's supposed to be a button here. Ah, and that button is supposed to allow me to log out as someone else or log in as someone else. So I can't start figuring that out. First of all, let me try forget password, log back in. Nah, this guy's not gonna let me in. So what I want to do is I want to just forget that this guy ever existed. That's a bug there. So let me refresh if it will come back to its senses. Okay, so this is coming back to its senses. Do I still remember the password? Okay, we are in. Couple of things I want to talk about is the implementation of this one that you just saw now. This HR, this thing, the reason for this is what is in Golang, by the way. This is what is in Golang, and the Hey API was able to convert it to this, which is neat. And the idea is, why this? Why do we need that? So if you go to onboarding, where is the onboarding guy again? Okay, onboarding is an employee, and we have where's the okay, onboarding. So you could do onboard someone. Yeah, so this is the part I was trying to work on. So without that stuff, the names were gonna look awkward, right? It was gonna look awkward. In terms of the spacing, that's another hack on its own. Notice that the team member spacing was automatic, right? So it's part of the code I wrote. So there's there's gonna be a code to treat spacing this one, but I'm not gonna focus on that now. So anybody can still read this, what this one means. So this is a win for me, and I can move on to something else. Okay, so this part has been done. Yeah, this part has been done. What I need to now, the reason why you will also wonder, why am I focusing on the repo? Or rather, why, the sudden change that we need to have repo and everything? Because now we need to start doing transactional stuff. We need to start taking things to, send it to somebody for approval, because that's what this one is now. Send for approval, and the other level of person will now look at it. So all this logic thing has started coming up. All this while we're still doing basic create, delete, add, update, directly. Now that approval has started setting in, you then need to start putting so many things into perspective. That's when, that's why I say most times all these things, I need to first build it. It creates the need for some things. There are some things that don't really need too much worry about at this stage again. Even though the grid is not 100%, but it can still serve a purpose of the view that we are doing with it. There's been a lot of styling. As you can see, there's a lot of color difference across board. So it's taking shape now, gradually. I'm thinking of launching, I don't know how feasible it is. I want this to go to App Store by next week, but I don't know how feasible it is. Part of the requirements that App Store will want us to do is the termination of accounts, which I did yesterday. Of course, you can't terminate yet, but I did this one, I think yesterday. And the idea is that you can, I think I'll need to remove things that are not going to be used needed. I'm going to remove them. The idea of termination of accounts is that you are not, once you can create an account from the system, from the app, you should be able to also say you're not doing again. That's the idea. You should be able to say you're not doing again. Okay, so let me take some comments. Someone is asking me a comment online, so let me take this time. I'll need to take time to answer comments. Let me read through comments so that I will respond. So just give me like 5 minutes. Let me answer comments and then we'll continue where we are. So someone is saying that okay, I'm just going through the comments to see what I can read. Okay, there's no comment on this. Let me now go to, I think there's comment on YouTube actually. Please, can you recommend where I can start afresh, because I'm new to all this. I think this comment is coming from YouTube. So if you are on YouTube, you can go to my details, my bio. I have where you can start afresh. So see the link on my bio, right? Check all those things out. Go to my playlist. You will see where you can get all the information that you are actually asking for. Okay, so let's move on. Now, yeah, I kind of struggled here a bit where, okay, I'll show you where I had a little bit of struggle, but you will see that the settings are kind of looking different from what we have from the main system, even though we reconcile them. But you must know that the settings here are supposed to be a general settings. Those one contains more deeper stuff that we don't even have yet, so we can't have those settings now. I like this privacy setting thing. We've been trying to have it for a while, but it was not possible. And the idea of this setting is that it allows HR to enforce some things. Okay, I think we have it, but apart from that, users should be able to enforce things like this, although these settings are not enabled yet. So this is just the UI interface. So in part of the requirement for app store or any of the app store is ability for you to delete your account. I think it's not deactivate, so it should be delete. You can delete your account and say you're not doing anymore. But when you submit your app like that, go ahead. No, it will just, yes, it will eventually it will delete. It will just disable your account, but eventually it will get deleted. Eventually. Another thing I've also been trying to do is this one, download my company data, right? Yeah, so I've been trying to do that. So what that does is that, imagine, client wants their data, very easy, just one button, and all these social media platforms provide that, right? Ability for you to download your data on your stuff. If you try to download your data on Facebook, for example, now they will say it will take like 2 weeks. Of course, because they have to now start calling all the data where you have to collect all your information. So it's a very nice thing to have, but of course this is very, 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 very difficult to do. It's not as easy as downloading your data. So the system has to put in like a job and then start working on it, right? Because all the attachments you've done, all the file you've done, we have to create a copy and zip it and create a place for you to pull off when you want to pull your stuff off. Okay, yes, this other part also gave me some stuff to work on. Where is the information here? So let's say, yeah, this part here gave me some stuff to work on. So but I've been able to do this, and if you check your details now, you should be able to see the details of the person, and that's profile details. So you can look at your profile details. It's similar to this also profile details, so we have that similarity there. So I want to complete the site. Yeah, so the more this UI we build, the more things get exposed in terms of, oh, we need to do this, we need to do that. Like as I was working on this now, I realized that we didn't have departments section, so I had to quickly create departments. Yeah, so this newly created. So I think I've done all this one. So this one is working. Save. You can save as fast as that. It's crazily fast. They call it blazingly fast. So it's blazingly fast. Yeah. So it's cool. It's cool to have something like this. Reporting line. Okay, this one reports to executive. This one also reports to executive. I've not done the organogram. Aha, these are the things I need to complete now. The dashboard, the announcement is done. There's no problem here. The organogram needs to be done. The my team needs to be done. And we have like, I don't know if I can pull this off in the next 4 days. I need to pull it off in the next 4 days. So I'm technically halting on this part. There's nothing to do here anymore. So the onboarding, I started the onboarding, but I've not really like the mail sending thing is not done yet. Yeah, so but I've done the technical things. I didn't even mention there are more tools that have been done. No more tools, like I've added more tools into the system, which are crazy tools. So I stumbled on this tool, that's multiple select shard CN. Yeah, so I stumbled on this tool. Fantastic tool. Yeah, and it's shard CN. Like, oh, that's cool. Free test support with oh, this guy don't go add Zod for their this thing. Well, I'm not using Zod anyway. So if you come here like this, it gives you this beautiful interface to select multiple stuff, because as at now what we have is one select, right? You can only select one person for this module, right? Or for this component that we have. But instead of me redesigning my own from scratch, you know the challenge of redesigning stuff. So I just went to go and pick this guy, and it was cool. So that now leads us to how was it implemented. I won't really go too much in details, but I'll use the opportunity to look at our stuff that will have the biggest component so far. Yeah, like I said, the guide is going to break down all these things, but let me just break down 1 or 2 things that I can say for now. So we have blocks. Blocks is from Shard itself, not from us. I didn't create that folder. So we have UI. UI is specifically limit or fixed to Shard. So this is Shard that created this. Anything that goes into UI is Shard. I don't want to stain it. I don't want to touch it. So everything here is copy and paste, right? So Shard automatically control this one, so I don't touch it. So now the custom is where we touch. That's our own stuff. Very funny that we're calling our own custom, but that's the name I'm going with for now. So the editor is different. The editor is big, right? It didn't come under this. This is also not us. This is also Shard. So they call it editor. Now I have external. This is the first component for Shard from that is not Shard directly. These external stuff. So things that is not from us will fit into external. And I find it weird, Sha. The requirement for working with Shard is you just do copy and paste. So you have to go and copy the code and paste it. That's how it works. Kind of very serious, very serious. And that's, how many line of code is this? That's 1004. Like that's serious stuff. That's some serious stuff there. I try as much as possible not to let my code base get long, but you don't have control over these things. As those idea comes, they turn into codes and then they become different. So this is my own custom, and we've come to have this. You also look at we'll also talk about the naming structure to all these things. That's later. It's part of what will come up in those documentation. You see naming structure and everything. This grid, there's a lot that is going to come up under this grid. I don't have time for grid now, but I do have time for forms because this is part of the system. Form, if you don't get the right way, you will need to do a lot of work. So inside form, I still have custom. That's a long story. Okay, it's not a long story. Something very easy to explain. Now, what is the custom under form doing? If I open a place, let me say job title ID, right? And I go to an interface. Now, if you look at this closely, this is a component that we need to populate the job title. Now, if I need to create this component again, like, okay, I still want to create another job title, but now I'm saying employee B job title on this same form. I'm just copying and paste. This is repeating yourself, you know, for crying out loud. So the example I used was for the employee, but this is still the same thing because this is how the component works, right? So let me even explain the components. Let me look for manager. Let me use manager to explain it. Manager ID. So I used it in onboarding. I think this should be it. No, this is not onboarding, but I can quickly go to onboarding form and look for body. Yeah, this is a perfect example. So I could just do something like this and say, hey, this is for employee select. I want to easily select employee. Remember, the point of all these things is to make the whole thing easy for developers using this stuff. When did I have double dash? Okay, so I can say employee select, the name of the form ID. Now, another thing you wonder is how in the heaven does this guy knows all these guys? Those are the work that has gone down in the form. Remember when we are creating form, I said that we need to create a store. That is the magic that is going on here. So if you add something that is not part of this, it will give you like an error to underline that thing for you. So the body ID, everything is already in the onboarding form. Long story. Okay, now this guy, I'm writing the same code. Because if I didn't use this method, guess what I would have used? I would have just used the same thing like this. I would have just go and copy this and paste every time I want to do employee. And we'll be doing employee a lot. Like you'll be referring to employee at some point. Like you want to do a lookup. So this is it. I've not done for job title. So the next thing will be that I will create another custom form and call it job select. So that way, if you want to call job select, guess what? You don't need to do these maneuvers. Look at the maneuver. This is department. I will also do it for department. I don't need to do these maneuvers. Yeah. So there's a way for me to get department. This is from Golang, by the way. I call the services. Once I call the services, I get the function, and then I do this is the service class. And then this is the method of that service, and it does what you need to do. Yeah, done. So this needs to be converted into a simpler, usable stuff that has all these things. You don't need to worry yourself about, oh, what is get key, Of course, this is React query happening here that I've wired inside the form input. Okay, I was going to talk about the form input thing. How I think it's the longest code I have so far, yet I'm trying to make sure it doesn't get that long, but it's inevitable. In fact, it's supposed to be longer than this because I do a lot of abstraction, or I added, how do I put it now? I created more components out of it. So like, for example, now text area, well, I have this component, I have this component, I have this component. Which other component again is customized that is generated by me? Which other component again? Yeah, select 3 is another component. So I have like 3 types of select, which is very funny. So I have the regular select, I have the select 2, which has the search capability, I have the select 3, which has a sync capability, right? Meaning you can query a database. So if you have, like, you're not querying a database, you use this, Then the select 4 is multiple select, which I ran out of names. Of course, that's the name of the tag, by the way. So it's better named after the tag, multiple select. So this multiple select guy, guess what it did? I had to write a wrapper for it to be able to call the multiple select tag that I did. Or I didn't do it, by the way, sorry. That this guy, so I call it multi select 3 because it's based on select 3. I think it's supposed to be changed to multiple select. Why is it called 3? I don't know why I called it 3. So inside it, look at what is happening. It's just calling the multi-select itself. This is from the multi-select guy. Yeah, so that's what is happening. It's just calling it the multi-select guy. And I think since the file is very big, yeah, that reminds me, because I need to lazy load the guy. I need to lazy load it though. So these are the things that makes your code light, which is one of those things that I'm advocating for. Yeah, another thing I need to also do is the editor has not found its place inside here yet. The editor is also gonna come here, and I'm gonna lazy load the editor as well. So with that lazy loading function, I always forget that parameter. Where is the guy? So let me just copy this guy. So the lazy load comes like you're importing, but not inside the code. You have to be inside here. So multiple select 3. Let me give it the exact name it was called. Yep, multi-select 3. Okay, so I have it there. And so instead of you calling it directly, now what you are doing here is that you are bringing it inside even when you need it and when you don't need it. That is, well, I won't say dangerous. You are adding more load to what, you know, is downloaded anytime you need your stuff. So this one is lazy loading importing. So I'm gonna remove this, but I need to say where it is. Is in control. I say controller. What's the name of that stuff again? Components. External. So another way to know that if this is working is to just click it directly, but I'm coming first. Let me bring this guy in. Components. I think there's an S. Okay, so what's your problem? Find it for me and do that. So I realized that this AI is becoming very slow. So let me locate it myself. Components, external. Okay, so I'm gonna ignore that. So you should see it, but sometimes it says it can't find it, but really it has found it. It's just keeping silent on what's happening. So while we are on suspense, so many things is breaking, so it really cannot find it. But I don't believe that's not correct. So what I'm gonna do is let me start the typo from manual and see what it's going to do. Okay, external. So what about now? So now I have confidence that it's the editor that's just playing prank on us. So let me on it and off it again. So that's why I'm looking for alternative to, I want to try out the Zen stuff. Like seriously, is it not still working? Oh, wow. Okay, so I don't know what error is talking about, but I'm gonna continue. So while this one is waiting, so I'm gonna have fallback. I'm gonna review that error later, but not now. So I'm gonna do loading components. My infamous loading is loading is true. Okay, so if it's gonna break the entire app, we'll just reverse what we've done, or I won't reverse it, I'll come and look at it later. But definitely it's a way to go for me. But it looks as if it has broken everything. Yeah, but I won't reverse it. I actually need it there. It's a file I don't want to download. It's a lot of page, like 1,000 line of code. It's not something I want to pull out every time I use a form, because those are the impacts that needs to be looked at. So what that means is that every time you call that page or that form, it's going to download this guy if you need it or not. So the most used component is what you are going to actually load by default. The component that you know that is going to be used the most, you're going to load them by default. The ones you are not using, you make them you lazy load them, just like as I have done. Okay, let's go to other part of the system and then we'll call it a day. If other part of the system will still work. So other parts are still working. I don't have time to look at the issue, so once I have that time, I will resolve that issue. So I guess that's actually what I want to go to. I think the next thing is for me to work on the dashboard. Yeah, and then announcements already done. There's nothing here. It's just to show the announcement. Yeah, okay, this part is, I like that part. The organogram should be dropping from what we have in the other system. So the organogram, I think it should be dropping. I will check it if I want to make any modification from it, but it shouldn't cost me too much time. It should be like an hour or two. I should be able to pull an organogram here that will match the theme that we have here. Then here, I don't know if I'm gonna have I'm gonna silence this guy because this part is supposed to be a big thing, because I want to be able to finish it very soon and put it on App Store. Yeah, today is 4th. By 8th, I want to start pushing it on App Store. Yeah. Okay, I think that's all for today. Any question? Yeah, so there's quite a lot of things that has come up with. There's a lot, as you can see, there's a lot there.